Korea's history is the tale of a small nation stuck between powerful neighbors. For centuries, Korea has had to find ways to survive and maintain its identity while dealing with larger countries like China, Russia, Japan, and later the United States and the Soviet Union. Over time, these powerful forces shaped Korea's fate, pulling it in different directions. Today, North and South Korea stand divided, two countries with shared origins but very different destinies. Let's explore the story of how this division happened. For more than 1,000 years, Korea was under Chinese influence. While it wasn't exactly a colony, it was what we call a tributary state, meaning Korea followed China's lead in politics, religion, and culture. Confucianism, China's main philosophy, became a way of life in Korea. The Korean rulers even copied China's government system and kept their kingdom mostly isolated from the rest of the world. Just like China did. Everything seemed peaceful. But by the 19th century, China began to weaken. European countries like Britain and France started colonizing parts of Asia. As China struggled to keep its power, many of its smaller tributary states fell under foreign rule. However, Korea remained untouched for the time being. And then came a new power, Japan. For centuries, Japan had been an isolated country, but by the late 1800s, it began to modernize rapidly. It built factories, schools, and a modern army, determined to become an empire. In 1894, Japan went to war with China, determined to become the new power in East Asia. Japan won the war, and in 1895, Korea stopped being a Chinese vassal. For the first time in centuries, Korea was independent, but not by choice. The Koreans had little experience in running a country without a bigger power's help. Soon enough, Korea found itself stuck between Japan and Russia, two nations eager to control the Korean Peninsula. As Korea tried to modernize, it modeled its reforms on Japan's progress, hoping to stay independent. Unfortunately, Korea's brief independence didn't last long. In 1905, after defeating Russia in another war, Japan forced Korea to become a protectorate. 5 years later, in 1910, Japan fully annexed Korea, turning it into a colony. Life under Japanese rule was harsh. The Korean language was banned, and Koreans were forced to adopt Japanese customs. Korean names were changed to Japanese names, and those who resisted were severely punished. Korean labor and resources were exploited to serve Japan's empire. Roads, factories, and railways were built, but not for the benefit of Koreans. Instead, these were designed to move resources from Korea to Japan's growing empire. One of the darkest parts of Japanese rule involved comfort women, Korean women and girls who were tricked or forced into sexual slavery for Japanese soldiers. These abuses left deep emotional scars, which still affect Korea's relationship with Japan today. When World War II ended in 1945, Japan's empire collapsed. Korea was finally free from Japanese rule, but freedom came with new challenges. After years under Japanese control, Korea lacked experience in running a government. As the Japanese withdrew, two new powers stepped in, the Soviet Union and the United States. The two countries had very different visions for Korea's future. The United States wanted a capitalist democracy, while the Soviet Union aimed for a communist state. And so, to prevent conflict between these forces, the two nations divided Korea along the 38th parallel, a line on the map that cut the country in half. The Soviets took control of the north, and the Americans took the south. At first, the division was meant to be temporary. Both sides agreed that Korea would eventually reunite. But as tensions between the US and the Soviet Union grew during the Cold War, the split became permanent. In 1948, both North and South Korea officially became separate countries. In the North, the Soviet Union installed Kim Il-sung, a communist leader with close ties to Moscow. They adopted Soviet-style policies, redistributing land, nationalizing industries, and creating a one-party state. Kim Il-sung became the country's absolute ruler. building a cult of personality that would last for generations. While in the South, Syngman Rhee became the first president, backed by the United States. They aimed to become a capitalist democracy, though in practice, it was far from perfect. Poverty, corruption, and political instability made the early years difficult, and the U.S., while they played a significant role in shaping the government, by the end of 1948, both North and South Korea were functioning as independent nations. However, the dream of reunification faded as the two countries drifted further apart. On June 25, 1950, North Korea launched a surprise invasion of South Korea, aiming to reunite the peninsula under communist rule. This was the start of the Korean War. At first, North Korea was successful, pushing deep into the South. But soon, U.S. and United Nations forces arrived to help South Korea, and the tide of the war changed. The conflict escalated further when China sent troops to support North Korea. The fighting was indeed brutal, with millions of soldiers and civilians losing their lives. Eventually, after 3 years of bloodshed, the war ended in 1953 with an armistice, but no peace treaty was ever signed. The two Koreas remained separated, divided by the demilitarized zone DMZ, a heavily guarded border that still exists till today. After the war, North Korea focused on becoming self-reliant, adopting the Juche ideology. The Juche ideology was an idea that North Korea should depend only on itself and not need other countries. It refused to rely on foreign aid, although it still received help from the Soviet Union and China. But unfortunately, over the years, North Korea's economy became deeply intertwined with its military, leading to severe food shortages and frequent famines. The government prioritized nuclear weapons development over the well-being of its people, further isolating itself from the rest of the world. Meanwhile, South Korea pursued a different path. With the American support, it adopted state capitalism, working closely with large family-owned businesses known as chaebols, companies like Samsung, LG, and Hyundai. South Korea's economy grew rapidly. Though South Korea experienced periods of authoritarian rule, public protests eventually led to democratic reforms in the 1980s. Throughout the years, there have been moments of diplomatic progress between the two Koreas. The 2000s Inter-Korean Summit gave hope that the two nations could one day move toward reunification, but these efforts have faced many challenges. North Korea's continued development of nuclear weapons and the political differences between the two countries makes reunification difficult. But despite these challenges, many Koreans still hope for it as families remain divided by the DMZ. The history of Korea's division is a story of survival and resilience. Both North and South Korea have overcome immense challenges, carving out distinct identities despite their shared origins. North Korea, isolated and authoritarian, clings to its nuclear arsenal and military strength, while South Korea, democratic and prosperous, has become a global leader in technology and culture. The dream of a united Korea lives on, but the path forward remains uncertain. Will the two Koreas ever reunite, or will their division continue to shape their future? Only time will tell. But one thing's for sure, the people of Korea, on both sides of the DMZ, have shown remarkable strength and determination throughout their history. If you found this video fascinating, please don't forget to like, subscribe, and also hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. Meanwhile, let us know your thoughts in the comments. Until next time.